Are you annoyed because the Devour nerf ruined your Titan Void build? Well guys, don't worry. Although we'll still get Devour almost constantly, we're going to replace it with Restoration. And yes, you heard that right. We're going to be almost getting infinite Restoration on our Titan Void build, and I have to say, it's great. It's amazing for those annoying activities where you have some bad modifiers like drifting apart and attrition, where you just get no health regen. So all we have to do is just kill adds, and we get restoration. And on top of that, we'll also be able to become Radiant for a 25% damage buff too, if we want to take that approach as well. Crazy, huh? But you know what the craziest thing is about this build? Is that you don't even have to use Void. You can use any subclass, and in fact, any build on the Titan with this build. Don't let that confuse you. In simple terms, we're using the Precious Scars exotic, which had a buff to get restoration, and applying that to the build of your choice. In this instance, our Void volatile ability build. And that buff is that kills matching your subclass grants restoration for 3 seconds in PvE, and previously this wasn't a thing. And although restoration also got nerfed, so now you receive less HP per second, it honestly doesn't massively affect the build's performance inside of endgame PvE. I never thought I'd say this, but this exotic to me feels like a must-use exotic for things like a master activity whilst underpowered, as well as GMs. It's literally free restoration for just getting kills. But if that's not enough, we're going to be getting volatile rounds, devour, faster abilities in general, as well as constant overshields, which just makes overall survivability better for Titans who struggle to stay alive in endgame content. And if you're wondering why I'm not using solo with this build, you'll find out a bit later in the video when I discuss that part. But now guys, before we continue, be sure to check out my sponsor Instant Gaming. They offer cheaper games for up to 90% off, and they even have much better deals available for pre-orders like the Final Shape expansion if you want to pre-order and save yourself a bit more money. And if you don't fancy buying anything, why not join our free monthly giveaway for a chance to win any game of your choice. All the details and links are down below, but now guys, be sure to leave a rating, comment your favourite build below, subscribe and share for good luck, and now let's go devour some enemies like a god. Now this season we got a bunch of good artifact perks, not as good as some of the previous seasons we've had in the past, but these new perks along with the exotic reworks and ability changes all affect our builds we use and create every season, which is why if you want to keep up to date with those best and latest builds out, then be sure to check out the full playlist down below, as I do cover new and updated builds every week here on the channel, and you might just find your new best build. But with this build today, we're updating our old Titan Void ability build we had that allowed us to get Devour frequently, but since Devour got nerfed, I felt like we needed to have something that can just add a bit more value to the build in terms of getting survivability, while not massively affecting the general build itself. So we're not only going to continue to have Devour, volatile rounds and overshields, but we're now going to be applying restoration to us frequently by just killing adds. And you might have two questions. First, what's the point of having restoration and Devour at the same time? Good question. It's because of two things. Our restoration when killing adds has a slight cooldown of about a second, at least it seems to be, and then restoration in general isn't enough to keep you alive on its own if you're going in guns blazing. Secondly, Devour will not always be active, especially in endgame content when you're just sat back shooting adds from a distance, because Devour requires us to pick up orbs and breaches, so this build is ideal for everything, whether you want to sit back and shoot for that restoration, or you want to go in and be aggressive, so it suits all playstyles. But you're strong, but you're not invincible. If you're running in with 1,000 things hitting you, you'll tank some of it, but you will probably die. However, with that said, Devour combined with Restoration is just going to make it much better overall. Devour will give you chunks of HP back, and Restoration will give you the regeneration, so both combined work smoothly, but 9 times out of 10, you're going to be having one of those buffs active all the time, as long as you're constantly killing adds, whether that's up close and personal or from a distance. Second thing, why not just use a solar build? We have solar perks in the artifact, so you can, but in my opinion it's just not worth it. Precious Scars is giving us restoration on kills matching your subclass. If you're running a solar build, you're probably going to be using solar weapons anyway to trigger that, but solar on a Titan has one of the best solar subclasses in the game. You have Soul Invictors, just killing scorched adds with those solar weapons and all the artifact perks this season will create sunspots everywhere to give you that restoration. You also have the healing grenades for restoration, and there's just so many ways to get health back on solar that we just don't need it. The only good time it would be worth running is if you're doing a GM and just want to run solar. But remember that you will need to use solar weapons, but for Void, we have things like the Elite Monarch, which is amazing for GMs and overloads. We have Commemoration, which is a fantastic weapon for ad clear and endgame. We have the Funnel Web, we have amazing Void Scout Rifles, we even have Void weapons with perks like Repulsor Brace, which can grant overshields. And everything combined into this one Void build, in my opinion, is much better with that exotic than using Solar. So for this build we will be sticking with Void. But with that said, you can use any subclass you want though. Now, the primary way you'll use this build in endgame content like a master activity or a GM is you'd use a void weapon and kill ads to get restoration for 3 seconds. That's basically it. Then just getting kills will keep giving you that restoration every time you don't have it. You don't have to sit back and play too safe, but either way, it makes survivability a lot better for you using the build this way, especially if you want to do activities flawlessly. Now in all other activities, even if you were to play master content but just a bit more aggressively, you'd start by getting a grenade kill. This will give you a void breach, giving you volatile rounds and devour. Then killing enemies will give you grenade energy, health on every kill, and in general you're just getting really good ad clear. If you're using a weapon that grants overshields when defeating debuff targets affected by volatile rounds, you'll get overshields on kills too, and all of this is happening while restoration is activating in the background every 3 seconds, which is just crazy. And if that's not enough, you will have your abilities slightly faster than normal too, with you being able to place down an on-demand barricade for a backup emergency overshield on top. So it is a pretty good build. Now we are using Precious Scars, and what this does is allow final blows from weapons with a damage type matching your subclass energy to create a burst of healing around you that grants allies restoration. And after reviving or being revived, you gain an aura that provides overshields. This exotic used to be, in my opinion, one of the worst exotics in the game, but now that it grants restoration on kills, it's probably one of the best exotics in the game to use on a Titan. And if we were to have void perks in the artifact, which is likely to happen in the future again, this build would only get better. Now since we are using that exotic, you are going to want to run void weapons so that we can get that restoration when getting kills, so make sure you do have a good void weapon on that can ideally kill ads quickly. Now I just want to quickly go over the artifact for a moment, because although nothing is really benefiting void, there is a little trick you can do, and that's to use Flint Striker so that rapid solar weapon precision hits and final blows grant radiant, which would then lead to Kindling Trigger and Raise of Precision being active too, on top of the 25% damage buff from being radiant. And although this requires using a solar weapon, what you could do is get kills using your primary void weapon for that restoration as normal, but use a heavy solar weapon that can hit things like champion crits or get quick kills so that you can become radiant and deal more damage, which is effective against barriers because being radiant will stun them, which means you won't be forced to use anti-barrier sidearms or rely on volatile rounds through grenade kills to get anti-barrier rounds. So you could instead just use a machine gun to get anti-barrier rounds through being radiant by just hitting them. Just a thought, but it works. Now there are a few perks in the artifact that you can use for this build specifically, which are wished into being for extra orbs right before getting your super upon ability final blows, Solar Operative for more DPS when playing solo, and Argent Ordnance if you want more DPS with rockets. And this does stack with weapon surge mods as well. In the subclass itself, I'm using a Ward of Dawn. I also have a Rally Barricade for the quicker cooldowns so that I can place it to get an overshield. Be sure to charge melee, which is going to stun overload champions, and a Vortex Grenade. Aspects I have are Control Demolition, so hitting a target with a Void ability makes them volatile, which includes volatile rounds hitting them too, and this will also grant us health. And then Bastion, so that our barricades will give us overshields, which I think is the best one to use in endgame PvE for that extra survivability. But for fragments, you want Echo of Cessation, so defeating volatile targets creates a void breach, and that's just going to give us class ability energy and devour, because the second fragment is Echo of Starvation, so picking up void breaches as well as orbs grant devour, and kills while you have devour will give us health and extend the timer. We also have Echo of Expulsion, so void ability final blows cause targets to explode, and Echo of Instability to get those volatile rounds for our void weapons. I do have some mods with this build which you do ideally want to have as well, so the main ones are 2 heavy ammo finders in the helmet with a void siphon mod to spawn orbs. You do want this on so that you can get the orbs to activate devour. Then you want a firepower in the arms, again for an orb on grenade final blows, and 2 utility kickstart mods to get our barricade back quicker, which is important because we want those overshields as much as possible. All the other mods are just cooldown mods. You can use what you want, but I would prioritize them for the class ability and grenade, which also means for your stats you'd want the triple 100 being resilience, discipline, and then strength. Honestly, by far one of my favourite strong builds to use in Destiny 2 right now, since that exotic got buffed. So for this build, I'm rating it a 10 out of 10 for its overall effectiveness and suitability for endgame PvE, being one of the best Titan builds in Destiny 2 Season of the Wish. If you like this build, you might like some of my other builds, all of which you can find on screen now, or linked down below. But for now guys, I've been Divide, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys soon for the next one. Peace out.